a woman comes in with hormonal disturbances that isn't sleeping well, getting to the root cause of that and providing a full night's sleep is something that I've seen to help almost more than anything else. Because if you're not sleeping well, that's when your body rests and repairs. I could literally list 20 different sleep solutions, but my job as practitioner is to say, okay, which of these can we start with that would be most likely for success?
I'm Philippa. In this podcast, me and my generous guests delve deep into the world of menopause. Buckle up and get ready to embark on a journey of empowerment and self-discovery as we embrace the change. Welcome to Moving Through Menopause. Thank you so much for joining me today on Moving Through Menopause. I've got Dr. Sara Poldmay. She's a doctor of acupuncture and Chinese medicine, and I just love this stuff. So, we're going to be sharing today the top 3 things women should be doing if they're struggling in midlife. And honestly, Sarah, I know that was me. I was struggling, and it was a real puzzle to unpick. Before we get started, I do want to invite you all to subscribe at Move with Philippa on YouTube for all the episodes of the podcast. Or if audio is your preferred medium, then subscribe on Apple Podcasts to master the menopause transition. And please share this with somebody that you love today because this information is so important for us to share. Thank you so much, Sarah, for coming along and joining me on the podcast. Welcome.
Thank
How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thanks so much for coming along and sharing your expertise. Because, like I said, I consider myself not a silly person, and still I was caught out and confused. All the things that were happening in my body. It started when I was 45, so I wasn't really ready for it then. And so, what's going on there?
Yeah, well, you're lucky it started at 45. A lot of women, it actually starts much earlier. And, we think of menopause and perimenopause as a midlife situation, but actually, a lot of women have their levels start to decline at around the age of 35. So they become symptomatic between 35 and 40. But because it's just the estrogen, sometimes it's just a little bit of, oh, I'm a light sleeper and I wasn't a light sleeper before. Maybe a little bit of fatigue, but because they have young kids in the house and are possibly working outside of the home, they kind of brush it off as I'm just doing too much. And they may be doing too much, but usually the hormonal changes do start between 35 and 40. So good for you to holding out till 45.
Well, I mean, having said that, when I was 40, I was diagnosed with
Mm.
underactive thyroid, and I think this can be part of this picture, can't it?
Yes, actually, it is a big part of the picture many times. And sometimes our docs out there are doing a very narrow hormone panel, thyroid panel, and sometimes we don't see the full picture. So there are things that can be going on with your thyroid that are subclinical and harder to catch. Sometimes it's more apparent, but there are things like Hashimoto's, which is an autoimmune disease that the thyroid is involved. And in that case, your thyroid antibodies will be high. And a lot of women that come to see me that have been struggling for years and years and years have never even had their thyroid antibodies checked, which is unfortunate because one of the biggest things you can do if you find that those markers are elevated is to cut out all wheat and gluten. And I don't think all women need to be gluten free, but women with high TPO, which is the thyroid antibodies, they really need to cut out all gluten. Like that's one of the first things that they should be doing. And it's unfortunate to see someone that struggled for 5 or 10 years when just a simple test could have led to a simple solution. Maybe not that simple. I mean, bread is yummy, but but we'll see that a lot in clinic, unfortunately.
Yeah. Oh, this is fascinating, isn't it? I've never had that antibody tested, as far as I'm aware, and I've been taking this thyroid medication since, like I say now, about 16 years, for heaven's
Yeah.
sake. It is a gradual onset as well that sometimes we can get caught out by, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. It can be gradual, but then there are women that are thrown surgically into menopause, and that
Mm.
creates its own host of problems. So We're all unique individuals in how we experience midlife, and there are a lot of different things that we can do depending on the person to make it a lot more comfortable and perhaps the best time of our lives.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm casting my vote for that one. So, how can acupuncture and Chinese medicine help us as we're navigating this period of transition?
Yeah, well, there's a lot. So I work with acupuncture, Chinese medicine, and functional medicine. And one of the beauties of functional medicine, just going to back up before I answer the
Sure.
acupuncture and Chinese medicine, but one of the beautiful things about functional medicine is that lifestyle and dietary choices and making sure that you have the proper building blocks to work with is super effective in treating a lot of things. The problem with that, even though that's a wonderful thing that it's in our power, is that sometimes we're not energetically aligned to make those changes. So, what I
Okay.
find is things that are more energetic medicine, like acupuncture, can help you to feel good enough and help you to be balanced enough to honor and live intentionally to make the changes with your diet or your sleep habits or your exercise routine. So it's a catalyst for change. Acupuncture, I
Mm.
would say, has its own innate healing properties, but it also works so beautifully in conjunction with making the changes that you need to make, for instance, of going gluten free if you need to do that, or, taking the time out of your day, carving out the time to eat whole natural foods rather than prepackaged convenient foods. So, first, it's a catalyst. And then also, there is just as importantly, there are significant acupuncture pathways we call meridians that helps you directly balance your hormones. So, if it's hormonal issues that are feeding all of your problems in midlife or discomforts in midlife, we can treat the hormonal imbalances directly. And then two of the big drivers of hormonal issues and the ride being so bumpy are, your liver and your gut health. So we can do things energetically to help clear out what we call liver chi stagnation and liver issues in Chinese medicine, which have a loose overlap with the liver detoxification processes that need to happen. A lot of women don't know that our livers are involved in not only detoxifying our systems from things like, let's say, alcohol, which is definitely a toxin, but our liver actually helps to clear out any excess hormones or hormones that aren't serving us. So if our livers aren't nice and clean and healthy, we get more of these hormonal ups and downs and crashes and not knowing how we're going to feel every day. So it's really important to address liver health, both through an energetic perspective and then also, if we need to, by cleaning up your diet, taking liver health supplements, that kind of thing. And then the same thing goes with gut health, because there are a lot of wonderful, wonderful nutrients in foods and anti nutrients in foods that aren't so wonderful. That if our gut health isn't where it needs to be, we can't make the most of those foods, which in turn really do feed our hormones. And that again creates hormonal imbalance. So it's kind of a nice mixture between the liver health, the gut health, and hormonal health. And they all do feed each other.
Yes, well, this is the thing that I increasingly come to realize over the past few years of doing this research, that the interweaving of everything. And so having something that allows us to unpick that a little bit, a process approach that you
Yeah.
describe. The liver is such a crucial, important organ. So giving it every possible opportunity to do its job at the peak performance. We want our organs and the liver in particular to be performing at its peak.
Wow. And two
Yeah.
things I didn't even mention that are also
Mm.
feeding into this dynamic are your stress hormones like cortisol and your blood sugar or your insulin levels, which insulin is also a hormone. So the reproductive hormones, the insulin hormone, which is blood sugar, and then your stress hormones, they all feed into each other. So it's really important to pay attention to blood sugar balance. And that doesn't mean that you have to eat this really strict diet. I'm not pro diet. I'm weight neutral. I think women can be healthy at different weights for sure, but we want to make sure that your blood sugars are stable. And ways
Mm,
to do that would be things like acupuncture definitely helps to regulate your stress hormones, which in turn can help with blood sugar balance. So you can eat a meal, let's say the exact same nutrient profile. Let's say it's a piece of toast and an egg, a few berries, and a half a slice of avocado or something like that. Take that meal one day and eat it when you're not stressed. And your blood sugars will have a completely different response. Your insulin will spike in a completely different way than if you eat that meal when you're completely stressed out and wired and tired and all of that. And in Chinese medicine, as well as functional medicine, all health really does begin in the gut. So when we say that, we really mean it. It's not just what you eat, it's how you eat. It's are
yeah.
you enjoying your foods? Are you stressed out? Are you not stressed out? Are you taking the time to eat mindfully? Are you preparing your meals intentionally? And in a fast-paced world, that's hard to do, but the human body is
Mhm.
super resilient and strong. So just little changes in the right direction can really prove to be worthwhile.
Oh yeah, you said a lot there, actually.
Yeah.
But this is something that I know to be true. And like eating a meal, I've had children round the table kind of giving it a bit of, like this at one another. And you're really not feeling relaxed.
Right.
And so lately I've started playing classical music while I my
Whatever it takes.
no, exactly. That whole piece around because we can get kind of what's the word lulled into some of this technology piece around blood sugar monitoring and thinking that a banana is evil because it does something to your blood sugar. And, like you're saying, it might do something if you're stressed and it might do something entirely different if you're completely relaxed. So like all these things, these are tools. They can give us an indication of what's going on in the body. But what you said, that recipe for mindful food preparation, mindful consumption, and community around the table, and a bit
Yeah.
of, back and forth with conversation and not just wolfing it down as quickly as we can and how that ultimately means we're going to be getting the building blocks that we need for our hormonal health, absorbing into the system, and then they're free there for the body to utilize.
Yes. And back to the blood sugar monitor, I do think that sometimes there's overhype with it, but as a clinician, I do use that in practice regularly for the simple reason that if someone doesn't fully buy into the idea that
Mm,
stress impacts them or that the time of day impacts how they're going to process foods. It's a good tool to be like the proof is in the pudding. I think it
Yeah,
can be
yeah, yeah.
overused or used for the wrong reason, but it is amazing to see the look on someone's face when they come in and tell me, I ate a full, 2 eggs, 2 slices of toast, an avocado, and some berries this morning, and I was totally fine because I had just come out of yoga class,
mm,
versus the same meal when they had a meeting they were rushing to get to. So that proof in the pudding is something that sometimes people that are more data minded or more analytical need to actually show what's going on in their body if they're a little bit
Yeah.
disconnected, and I think a lot of people are.
Yeah, no, thank you for picking up on that because I do absolutely agree. And that information it can be so powerful when we're talking about changing habits that can sometimes just be quite hard to change.
Exactly. There's the best of both worlds, the Eastern and, ancient wisdom that is through and through, like, still proven this day works, the intentional eating, the energetic medicines and stuff, and then combining it with a little dose of science and technology is just that's, like, where I live. That's my jam.
Oh, well, do you know what? I really bear with you because I'm an acupuncture trained physio.
Oh, great.
Yeah, so I've kind of trod that path of east meets west.
Yeah.
It's very powerful stuff, and I think, like you said, to open a window, sometimes we use it, and
Mhm.
that's the same in pain relief. That we might use it to open a window for somebody.
For sure. For sure. And then the one other thing that I didn't touch on after talking about the blood sugar and stress response and the other things like liver and gut health and hormonal health is sleep. So if a woman comes in with hormonal disturbances that isn't sleeping well, getting to the root cause of that and providing a full night's sleep is something that I've seen to help almost more than anything else. Because if you're not sleeping well, that's when your body rests and repairs. So I really try and work on that pretty heavily if it's an issue.
Yeah, and I mean, sleep was my nemesis. That was the thing that really hit me when I was about 45. The chronic insomnia, horrendous, and affects every aspect of our lives, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. When you're not sleeping. I know my husband and I sometimes it can be a struggle because I'll sleep in the marital bed for a few weeks and then realize, I'm just not sleeping well. And I try and reassure him that it has nothing to do with him, but I value my sleep and know that my performance and how I enjoy my days is just completely different if I sleep well. So that means sometimes sleeping alone. And there are plenty of studies to support that people do sleep better when they're not sharing a bed with pets or with other people.
I like
My
that
pets are
with
not
pets.
allowed in my bed, but I'll sit and have coffee with them in the morning and, all of that, but they're not allowed to interfere with my sleep.
No, definitely not. The quality of sleep is so important that we're increasingly becoming aware of this fact, aren't we?
Mhm.
So the sleep piece, I did everything I could think of. And I used all the sleep hygiene tips that we might give to people. And still it was really the stress that was the thing that was getting in the way of it.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of things that you can do to improve your sleep, and some of them aren't directly related to sleep. Some of them are balancing your blood sugar. See whether a high carb meal or low carb meal works better before bed. Because for some people, eating too many carbs before bed causes wake cycles. Some people, for some reason, and that's where I love the blood sugar monitor. But sometimes food can play a part. Stress definitely plays a part. Your circadian rhythm, if that's disrupted, getting morning sunlight for 10 minutes each morning. Uninterrupted morning sunlight can be hard during winter if there's not a lot of daylight and the UV is low, but getting the sunlight in your retina signals you to do like 100 bodily processes. And if you're not getting that sunlight early in the morning, those processes start to come on at their own schedule. And that can just decrease your ability to sleep. So, getting out early in the morning for sunlight or getting a sun lamp if you need to for the mornings. It's not only for seasonal affective disorder, but can also help you to reset your sleep cycle. There's so many things that you can do for sleep, and not every one of them works for every person. If it was an easy solution, everybody would sleep well. But I certainly have my checklist that I run through with people.
So is that something you're dealing with on a regular basis, the sleep?
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You mentioned gut health and sort of manipulating the conditions, I suppose, in the gut. And so are we using nutritional approaches, or medicines, acupuncture? Are we using all of these things in a recipe together?
Yeah, so it really depends on the person and, what prescription medications they're taking. And I am a Chinese herbalist. I was trained as an herbalist and I tend towards the Chinese herbal remedies, but also if that's not appropriate based on, if they're on a laundry list of prescription meds, I worry about interactions, giving that Chinese medicine polypharmacy. So usually there are 10 or 12 different herbs in each formula. So if I'm not comfortable prescribing to someone, there are things that we can do, probiotics, simple probiotics or digestive enzymes or things that coat the gut lining to repair the gut. There are a lot of different ways to approach that. And mindset and meditation and intentional eating and all of that is really a part of it as well.
Yeah. And I mean, it can feel a bit like a long list of things for us to do. You mentioned before about habit change not being easy for people to get their head around. So navigating that with people is another part of this process, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think that that's why it's so important to find a healthcare professional or practitioner that you really trust, that you feel is knowledgeable and has your best intentions, in their heart for 2 reasons. You don't want someone that's just throwing every trick in the book at you. You want someone that can look at your whole health history and see what solutions would be the most likely to serve you. Because, I mean, I could literally list 20 different sleep solutions, but my job as practitioner is to say, okay, which of these can we start with that would be most likely for success? Because we can't do 20 different things all at once. It's
Mm.
just, not feasible. But again, that goes back to the acupuncture being a catalyst. By working with someone to regulate their central nervous system, to get them in a good place emotionally and their stress hormones a little bit lower, that makes you more likely to make some of these changes. We still don't want to request that you make 20 at once, though.
No. No, no, quite. So where are you with your kind of testing and evaluation process? What sort of testing and evaluation? And I know that's probably tailored to the individual as well, but can you give me an idea of the kinds of things that you might be thinking?
Yeah, absolutely. It always depends on the individual. I When anybody comes in for a new patient appointment, I want to see any recent blood work that they've had. And then based on their symptomology, for instance, if they're fatigued all the time, if they don't have a complete thyroid panel, we want one of those. If they don't have a basic hormone workup and they're struggling with hot flashes, because hot flashes aren't always from estrogen. They can be, for instance, we've caught things like infectious diseases. So we have a lot of tick-borne illness in our area,
Yeah.
and things like babesia, tick-borne illness, can cause night sweats. So we can't just assume a woman in midlife having hot flashes is always because of their hormones. I've had people test their hormones and they're nowhere near menopause and they're having hot flashes. And in that case, it can be something entirely different. I mean, stress in itself or blood sugar regulation can cause you to have hot flashes. So it really does depend on the individual. I'm not a super test heavy person. I want to see a real reason behind a test before we go down a million different rabbit holes, but we don't want to miss any red flags. So if someone's extremely tired, that's not normal. We definitely want to see what's going on there. And sometimes it's more about treat and test. So, I will develop a treatment plan with someone if they're not in a crisis situation. And then after 4 to 6 weeks, depending on the patient, if they're not feeling better, that may be the time to test. Whereas we don't necessarily go to testing immediately.
Yeah, no, I think that's very sensible, isn't it? Because they are expensive for people, aren't they? A
They
lot of the
can be.
time.
They
Yeah.
can be. Absolutely.
Yeah. I love the idea that we can get holistic approaches to health,
Yeah.
tapping into those, the potential that traditional medicine has in conjunction with the best of
Yeah.
the Western medicine. Because these approaches, I think you said this in the beginning, they've been around for centuries. There's
Hmm.
got to be something in it,
Yeah.
hasn't there? A lot of Western science now is kind of proving what we kind of thought we knew all along, you
Yeah.
know. So,
I know. I remember seeing something on CNN not too long ago, and it was something about scorpion venom used for seizures, a new discovery in Western medicine. Like, we knew that thousands of years ago. Let me go find my old textbook.
so is this something you've been doing the whole of your career?
I've been
Yeah.
practicing holistic medicine, well over
Yeah.
25 years. And then I became an acupuncturist and Chinese medicine practitioner in 2003. So it's been a long time.
So did the functional medicine follow that?
Yes, I did my
Yeah.
functional medicine certification about 6 years ago because I felt like there were some missing links and I wanted to make sure that I had bases covered for patients. So, in functional medicine, it can be quite test heavy. And I'm not, again, not a test heavy practitioner. I work with a nurse practitioner that does more of the hormonal replacement if the patient does need hormonal replacement or choose to be on that, or we can't get the desired results from plant based medicine. But I do love functional medicine because it does get to the root and does help patients to take some responsibility for their health. I think that's a really important and frank conversation that you have to have with people. At least in our country, I can't speak for the rest of the world. We've got a lot of metabolic disease that's largely lifestyle induced. So, by bringing people, taking them from where they're at, and then slowly bringing them over to the light side, so to
Into the light.
yeah. And because we it may be hard work to take care of yourself now, but if you don't, there's a lot of hard work at the tail end of life with so many of the struggles that people go through without having a healthy lifestyle. So, by increasing your chances of aging well, I just think it's such a beautiful thing, and people can be quite proud of themselves when they make these healthy changes.
Yeah, it's a real achievement, isn't it? And the other thing that I know from my own experience of being quite passionate, I'll say passionate
Yeah.
about healthy lifestyles, it's contagious. The
Yeah.
people around you see, oh, hang on, what's she been doing? Or for me, my children, it was really important for me that we've laid a foundation that they now have. Absolutely, the world's their oyster. They're fit and
Yeah.
healthy and strong, and so it maybe that wasn't in your past, but it could be in your future.
It's never
So
too late to start. It
yeah,
really isn't. And, again, that healthy mindset and things like acupuncture or discovering things that help to, just basically help you flip a switch are so powerful.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, do tell us where we can find you, won't you, please, Sarah?
Sure. Well, I don't think many of your listeners are in the Maryland area. I do have two wellness clinics, but what I will point people to is my website, risingwomanproject.com. And Rising Woman Project is kind of my next venture. So there's a little bit about wellness and where you can find me for actual work with me as a practitioner. But there's also where I lead my yoga retreats. I am a yoga instructor as well. And it's really a place for connection for women. And I've been starting to develop this project for women to have education, to have wellness resources, to have travel together, and to just basically like raise our collective vibe, surround ourselves by women that also want to be healthy and happy, mind, body, and spirit. So, risingwomanproject.com is where you can find me if you are not in the Maryland area.
Well, you'd be surprised. 50% of my listeners are over there in the USA. So,
Okay, well, they probably love your accent. I know I do.
well, I absolutely love the sound of what you're getting up to. I too am a yoga teacher. I'm a Pilates teacher. I'm an all round health enthusiast. And I'm going on my first yoga retreat at Easter this year. Yeah, so
Where
I'm
are you
really
going?
excited. Well, I'm going to Alicante, which is in Spain.
Oh,
uh, because that's nearer for me, but I wouldn't rule out a trip across the pond. I have to.
you may not need one. My main goal is to start hosting them in Italy, but that's going to be in a few years.
Oh, okay. Well, keep me in the loop,
I
won't you?
will. Yes, if anybody wants to be kept in the loop, definitely go to my website and sign up for my mailing list. I don't send a ton of emails, but it could be the perfect fit for you one day.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. It's
Thank
been
you.
really wonderful to connect with you and to hear
You.
your story and all this amazing work that you're doing. So thank you so much for coming along.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.